It is now 7:02, and I'm reconvening to open session and calling to order the regular Board of Education meeting for Indian Prairie School District 204 on Monday, July 19th, 2021. Our next Board of Education meeting will be held on August 9th. Please continue to check the website for location changes for the Board of Education meetings. Jeannie, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Karubis.
Here.
Mr. Rising.
Here.
Ms. Deming.
Present.
Ms. Grover.
Here.
Ms. Donahue.
Here.
Ms. Jane.
Here.
Ms. Fosdick.
Here.
Mr. Rising, will you lead us in the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, tonight we have several board salutes. So I will start with Ms. Grover.
Waubonsie Valley student received medals at ACT-SO competition. Waubonsie Valley senior Antonia Houston won a gold medal at the DuPage County ACT-SO competition in the Performing Arts Dance Contemporary category. Antonio advanced to the national level where he won a silver medal. Congratulations, Antonio, on your outstanding performance.
Thank you. Mr. Karubis.
Matea Valley student appeared on American Ninja Warrior. The board salutes Maggie Owen, a senior at Matea Valley High School. Maggie was one of a handful of teenagers asked to compete on American Ninja Warrior and the only teen from the Chicagoland area. Maggie made it through 3 challenges of the course in an episode that aired last week. Congratulations, Maggie, on your great performance.
Thank you. Ms. Deming.
Career certifications earned at Neuqua Valley and Waubonsie Valley. The board salutes the 82 District 204 students who earned certifications in Microsoft products, Adobe products, and digital literacy through career certification courses. The courses were offered for the first time at Neuqua and Waubonsie during the 2020-2021 school year. Additionally, 4 students earned the Microsoft Associate Credential and 1 student earned the Microsoft Expert Credential. Congratulations to all these students on their stellar accomplishment.
Can people hear?
Couldn't hear me?
Your microphone, I think, is
off.
close to-
Sorry.
Could you hear Ms. Grover? Okay.
Apologize. Do you need me to do it again?
I think you should redo it.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Can
you hear me now?
Raise your hand if you can hear.
Sorry about that. Career certifications earned at Neuqua Valley and Waubonsie Valley. The board salutes the 82 District 204 students who earned certifications in Microsoft products, Adobe products, and digital literacy through career certification courses. The courses were offered the first time at Neuqua and Waubonsie during the 2020-2021 school year. Additionally, 4 students earned the Microsoft Associate Credential and 1 student earned the Microsoft Expert Credential. Congratulations to all these students on their stellar accomplishment.
Ms. Fosdick.
The board salutes Rachel Druce Hoffman of Neuqua Valley and Thomas Maxson of Matea Valley for being named National Merit Scholarship winners. Rachel will be attending Iowa State University, and Thomas will attend the University of Maryland. Congratulations, Rachel and Thomas, for this wonderful accomplishment.
Mr. Rising.
To Matea Valley, Neuqua Valley, and Waubonsie Valley for being recognized as Project Lead the Way 2020 and 2021 Distinguished Schools. This recognition means that we are empowering students to thrive in an evolving world and achieve exemplary results from our Project Lead the Way high school programs. Our 3 high schools are each one of 201 high school programs across the country to receive recognition this year. Matea, Neuqua, and Waubonsie are 3 of 29 Illinois high schools recognized this year. Congratulations to our Project Lead the Way students and teachers.
Ms. Jane.
The board salutes Abhinav Ane, a student at Clifford Crone Middle School who was selected as one of the top 10 national finalists in the 2021 3M Young Scientist Challenge. As a finalist, Abhinav has the exclusive opportunity to work directly with the 3M scientists during the summer mentorship program. Each finalist also receives a cash prize and a technology prize package. Abhinav will compete to win $25,000 and the title of America's Top Young Scientist as part of the final event that will be held in October 2021. Congratulations, Abhinav.
So it's now time for public comment. In recent years, our board meeting agendas had 2 30-minute items for public comment, one for non-agenda items and the other for agenda items. Starting today, we are changing to having one 60-minute public comment agenda item. This removes any confusion there might be when signing up for public comment, making it easier. So it is time for a public comment. As I said, 60 minutes is allowed for public comment, and each person is limited to 3 minutes. That will be enforced. We have exactly 20 speakers today, so it will take up our 60 minutes. When addressing the board, we ask that you respect the confidentiality and safety of our students and school district personnel. We also ask that those addressing the board be cognizant that this is an open meeting and is available to all age groups, and as such, ask that you consider who the audience members are this evening and keep comments age appropriate. Public comment represents the voice and opinion of the speaker. There will be no feedback from the board members during the meeting, but follow-up will be provided by administrator as appropriate. So with that, I'm going to call the speakers in order, and I will tell you who's on deck for the next speaking position so you can be ready to come to the mic. So, no, we don't have that in our board. We allow 3 minutes for each speaker. So our first speaker is Cheryl Barondale, and she will be followed by Raquel Farmer-Hinton. Is Cheryl here? Oh, okay.
Hi, thank you for having me. Is this on? Can you hear me? Okay. My name is Cheryl Barondale. I am a parent of an incoming kindergartner and a 3rd grader at Bilta Elementary, as well as a teacher in Woodridge. And I come today because I am very concerned about reports that people are considering lifting the mask mandate in schools for our children. My children, like all elementary school children, are too young to be vaccinated. We know that in our elementary schools, we therefore have a 0% vaccination rate. And the CDC, the Illinois Department of Public Health, the ISBE, the local health departments, and as of today, the American Association of Pediatrics have all recommended that universal masking within schools. All of the science, all of the experts are saying the same thing. I personally spoke to Dr. Vernon of the Illinois Department of Public Health on the phone on Friday and asked him what he thought of the Oswego and Wheaton-Warrenville districts' decision to lift the mask mandate and make masks optional. And he said, I quote, that he thought that that was extremely dangerous, but he also went on to say that it is a misconception that it is optional, that it is required by the Illinois Department of Public Health to have masks for unvaccinated students, not optional. He also went on to say that he disagreed strongly with the decisions of those districts. I'm here to ask you not to follow the politics, not even to follow public opinion, because public opinion can go in any direction, but to actually follow the science. Our primary responsibility as educators, and I see you guys as educators, and I thank you for serving, and I know it is a very difficult time in education. I have been through that personally myself as a teacher. But our primary goal as educators is, one, obviously the education of our students. Masking allows kids to stay in school allows our schools to stay open, allows fewer kids to be put into quarantine where they are then missing days of their education, and that is our primary goal as educators, as a district. The second duty of a district of educators is to keep children safe. Now, many people say COVID is not that serious for young children, that young children don't experience the same health impacts that older people do. However, the research is saying that approximately 30% of children who contract COVID
Ms. Donahue, the
experience
speaker's
long
time has
COVID
ended.
Cheryl, your
symptoms.
time is up. Thank you for your comments. And our next speaker is Raquel Farmer-Hinton. After Raquel, Darcy Wexelbaum will be the next speaker.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Raquel Farmer-Hinton, and I'm the parents of children at Wabansie and Steck Elementary School. And I'm here to offer support for more diverse voices in our community. So I just want to say thanks. Thanks for all of your hard work regarding equity. I'm here to show support for your equity work, including your board goals and your district goals. I appreciate the equity goals for board member training and your equity lens on board decisions. I also appreciate your equity lens on student outcomes and APA dual enrollment access. The equity work you all have done is rooted in equity goals from the 1960s and 1970s. Your work predates any political pressure designed to make your current equity efforts seem toxic. Please do not get distracted. Some people want to silence equity and punish equity, but our 204 educators have a lot of support within this community. We don't want our educators leaving positions or the profession because equity is moral and right. Culturally relevant teaching is moral and right. I am here to ask that you all please keep moving forward with equity. There's so much more work to do, particularly having more Black teachers in 204 and improved representation in the 204 curriculum. You have so much support from 204 parents and community members. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Darcy Wexelbaum, followed by Melissa Ward.
Good evening, Superintendent Talley and IPSD 204 board members. My name is Darcy Wexelbaum, and I am the parent of a soon-to-be fourth grader at Patterson Elementary School. Go Prairie Dogs. I am here this evening on behalf of my family and appreciate the opportunity to speak before you this evening regarding the 2021-2022 school year fall opening plan. I cannot even begin to fathom the amount of time and energy each of you have and continue to spend on this topic alone. My family and I thank you for your continued efforts to safely return our children to a full day of school this fall. I do not envy your job. On July 9th, 2021, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, made up of our nation's top physicians, epidemiologists, scientists, and public health officials, updated their guidance for COVID-19 prevention in K through 12 schools. One of the CDC's key takeaway recommendations was that schools maintain at least 3 feet of physical distance between students within classrooms, combined with indoor mask wearing by all individuals age 2 and older who are not fully vaccinated. The American Academy of Pediatrics took things a step further, recommending universal masking for all students older than 2 years and all school staff. Some of the AAP reasons cited are as follows. 1, a significant portion of the student population is not eligible for vaccination. 2, protection of unvaccinated students from COVID-19 and to reduce transmission. 3, potential difficulty in monitoring, enforcing mask policies for those who are not vaccinated. In the absence of schools being able to conduct this monitoring, universal masking is the best and most effective strategy to create a consistent message as to, expectations, enforcement, and compliance without the added burden of needing to monitor vaccination status. And lastly, continued concerns for variants that are more easily spread among children, adolescents, and adults. Our district schools serve thousands of children under the age of 12 who are not eligible for vaccination at this time. Guidance given by both the CDC and the AAP emphasize the importance of implementing layered prevention strategies to protect those who are not fully vaccinated, including students, teachers, staff, and other members of their household. These prevention strategies are critical in reducing the transmission of COVID-19. I was once told never to gamble with anything that I was not willing to lose. The health and safety of our children, teachers, school personnel, and other vulnerable members of our community is at risk. Is this a risk our district is willing to take? My family and I ask
Ms.
that the
Donahue,
district...
the speaker's time has ended.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank
Our
you.
Next speaker is Melissa Ward. Melissa will be followed by Bree Khalid.
Hello. Tonight, in addition to the topic of returning to school, I'd like to address some concerning comments and behavior of this board. Ms. Donahue recently made claims by email that if the district does not follow guidelines, the district could face financial consequences. When asked for the state laws or school codes backing up her statement, Ms. Donahue stated that providing the information requested was, quote, not productive. I beg to differ. The community demands truthful statements and transparency from this board. Recently, Mr. Karubas made highly offensive and inappropriate comments in a 204 remote parent Facebook group, a group that apparently every single board member has joined. Mr. Karubas stated that he personally discounts the loudest voice by 25%. Does that include the loudest voice on both sides? Why would a board member elected by this community discount parents advocating for their children? Just a few days ago, Ms. Donahue said in an email, quote, "The input and concerns of all parents are considered." So which is it? Are you considering our voices or are you discounting them? Apparently, Mr. Karubas hears silent voices too, according to his comments. What does that even mean? Did you hear the voice of the woman who, in the remote support group, commented that masks should be optional? A viewpoint contrary to the fear-mongering opinion of this group. That woman was kicked out of the group the very next morning by the group administrator. So how exactly are the 7 of you hearing her voice when it's being censored? Some will say that children under 12 should be masked until eligible for the shot. According to the CDC, there have been 271 deaths attributed to COVID for children 5 to 18. The number is 0.0005% of the total deaths attributed to COVID. Did you know that more kids died in car accidents last year? Think about that when you are assigning our bus routes, given the district transports thousands of students daily without the use of seatbelts. Maybe parents should be demanding seatbelts on every bus, since there's a higher risk to our kids than COVID. With regards to quarantine rules, do you or anyone else have proof that vaccinated staff and students do not spread COVID? I don't know of any such peer-reviewed study. So why are we only quarantining unvaccinated students? You have data from last year with the quarantine students. How many quarantine students, due to close contact, actually ended up contracting the virus? Section 710 of our school policy states, equal education and extracurricular opportunities shall be available for all students without regard to color, race, nationality, religion, sex, sexual orientation, ancestry, age, physical or mental disabilities, gender identity, status of being homelessness, immigration status, order protection status, or actual or potential marital or parental status, including pregnancy. Can we revise that policy to also include vaccination status? Equal education and extracurricular opportunities must be available for all. I believe your proposed quarantine rules not only further learning loss, but also discriminate against our students. Some would like to quote the AAP recent recommendations. Follow the money. The top sponsor of the AAP is Pfizer. You represent our community. You should not be discounting any parent's voice. You shouldn't be discriminating or withholding education.
Time has ended.
Thank you very much for your comment. The next speaker is Bria Khalid, followed by Brian Wachowski.
Okay. All right. It'll be a little bit less intense. Dear members of the board, my name is Bria Khalid, and I have 2 children in the school district. My husband and I are here tonight to support masks being optional for our children starting at the beginning of the school year. We have seen other nearby schools like Oswego and Wheaton that have elected masks as optional. We believe our district should also do the same. I just visited my cousin over the weekend who lives in Evanston. She too informed me that Evanston High School, where her son is going as a senior, will be optional on masking. I've been speaking to many parents regarding this topic, and they too, several who could not be here tonight, agree that having a choice to wear masks is not only feasible but necessary. In the entire Will County, we are now averaging a rate of 10 to 12 new cases per day. In the very height of the virus, we were at 770 cases per day. That's a 98% drop in the cases per day, and an overall case positivity rate of 2.4%. I'm not sure how much lower we can get at this point. Another point is that everything else around us is open and has been mask optional. What good is it to keep our children masked for the school day, only then for them to go on with no masks everywhere else? It just doesn't make sense. I understand there may be some who do not feel comfortable with not wearing a mask, and they are welcome to continue to wear them. I would not impose on their rights to wear their masks, but the rights for my children should not be compromised. To have this personal choice is what we are in support of. It's time for the board to make the decision to move on masks being optional. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Brian Wojciechowski, followed by Jeff Meltzer.
Hi, my name is Brian Wojciechowski. I'm a parent of 2 daughters in the school district, and as a tax-paying resident in this district, I want to make it known that we reject all attempts made by the district to enforce any required COVID procedures onto our children unless there are specific laws that this board can cite granting the authority to do so, and that this board provides specific studies that provide and prove the effectiveness of any such measure. No longer will we accept this board simply falling back on the state's guidance. Effective July 9th, state agencies removed all references to the words must and requirement that were in previous guidance and replaced these references with should. At this time, it's imperative to note that guidance is not an actual written law. With recent guidance now on the side of parental choice, there's now no debating that any such laws exist to support required COVID procedures. In an attempt to confirm this, by reaching out to the board on July 10th, I sent the following email. If legal liability is truly a risk for not following IDPH ISBE guidance by a local school district, please show me in the Illinois School Code and or Title 23 of the Administrative Code or anywhere else in the law where it is written. If funding or recognition status is at risk, I would like to know the same information, and I formally request that this board print it off and underline it for me so I can see it clear as day. The next day, Board President Donahue replied by writing that the board considers many factors when making decisions. For the past year, the board has been consistent in following guidance from the IDPH and ISBE. Furthering the discussion on interpretation of various state and school codes is not productive to addressing the underlying issue of decision-making in this district. Note that no part of Ms. Donahue's response does indeed answer my question. While I didn't get the response that I'd hoped for, I did get the answer that I needed, which might as well have been best stated as, we're no longer able to cite a law because one does not exist, so you may do as you please, which is to make the best decisions that are best suited for your children. I drew this conclusion because if a law did indeed exist granting the school board the right to continue to enforce COVID procedures, surely it would have been presented to me. We deserve to know the answer to this question, especially from those making specific health decisions for our children. To summarize, unless a new law is written granting this school board the authority that they currently do not have, my children will not be required to wear masks except where required by law, such as on public transportation. They will not be offered a mask at school or influenced to wear one at all. They will not be segregated and with additional physical distancing for not wearing a mask, and they will not be required to test, participate in contact tracing, or quarantine. At this time, every parent has the right to choose what's best for their children. Again, it's up to the parents, not the federal government, not the state of Illinois, not the county, not the city, not this school board, not Dr. Talley. Us as parents have the right to decide what's best for our children. If you do not want to subject your children to COVID procedures, do not comply with anything that's not a law.
Jeff Meltzer is the next speaker, followed by Patty Herbert.
Good evening, Ms. Donahue, Dr. Talley, members of the board. Sure seems there's a lot of surrounding districts that don't want to follow the science either, from what I'm hearing. My name is Jeff Meltzer. I have students at Scullin as well as a senior at Nequa, and I know for a fact that my daughter and her classmates would love to have a normal senior year that her sister and a lot of their other friends have missed out the last 2 years. Our children have spent the last 6 months hanging out in groups, having sleepovers, pool parties, travel teams, sports in dugouts and hotels, piling on top of each other, yet we're led to believe that being in a school is more dangerous. We're also led to believe that you can go to Wrigley, Comiskey, or Guaranteed Rate, whatever they want to call it this week, United Center, at full capacity, sitting next to people, but the schools are more dangerous. CDC guidance, I guess, keeps changing, but it must be wrong according to some. And I keep hearing at the same time, we all keep talking about the Delta variant. Obviously, there's been different things. We've heard South African, we've heard of various others. We can go Epsilon, Zeta, Eta, Theta. We can all go through the Greek alphabet and be back in fraternities and sororities. There's always going to be something to worry about. If you believe that strapping a tissue with 2 rubber bands or the 99-cent clearance mask across your face from Target is going to better protect your children, I respect that choice. Go right ahead. That's not going to work for mine. We do not have N95 masks being provided by the district every week for our kids. If you want to get the vaccine, for the record, I was vaccinated. I made that choice. My kids are old enough to make it. It is not proven overly safe. There are still studies going on. It is not approved, folks. It is emergency use only through the FDA. I'm not giving that to my children. Let me be pretty clear on the rest of this. If you want to make these choices, if you want to give your child a mask, if you want to get them vaccinated, I support that 100%. We've heard prior speakers talking about the great work this district is doing for equity, diversity, acceptance. Where's the acceptance for those of us that are saying enough? We want to make our own choices for our kids. We've also heard that Illinois State Board of Ed guidance has said that we could lose funding if we didn't follow what they said to do. And even Governor Pritzker has said that's not the case. We're seeing surrounding districts go to mask optional. Let us make the choices for our kids. Let other parents that have choices to be made for their children that is in the best interest they want. But do not lecture any of us what we should do with our children. You have yours, I have mine. I'll make my choices with my wife. You make yours, and my 17-year-old can make her own choices, as can a lot of other kids going a lot younger. Thank you.
Next speaker is Patty Hebert, followed by Marion Banks.
Hello, my name is Dr. Patty Herbert. I'm a family medicine physician and a parent of a rising second grader at Patterson Elementary. I'm also a COVID-19 vaccinator for the Will County Health Department. I'm speaking to you on behalf of the community physician parents who support continuing the mask mandate. The scientific evidence has clearly shown that the mandatory masking has helped to reduce the spread of COVID-19. Within the Patterson community alone, we had multiple instances where there was a positive case within the school during the past year, but it did not lead to an outbreak due to the mandatory masking in school. I have a letter with me that was written by our community physicians supporting the mask mandate. It has 33 signatures of our community physicians. It was forwarded to the board members earlier today. These are medical leaders in our community. These are your doctors. These are our children's doctors. We are entrusted with your health on a daily basis. So please trust us when we say that the mask mandate should continue in the school until everyone can be vaccinated, including the youngest children in our community. We, as physicians, have seen the devastating effects on people's lives from the COVID-19 virus. There can be long-term effects that continue for months, if not lifelong. We have seen healthy people become debilitated by the virus, and we have seen children die. Our young children are now the most vulnerable to the COVID-19 virus, including the more aggressive and infectious Delta variant, since the vaccine is still only available to teenagers and adults. Yet they are still children. They cannot be held responsible for making the decision in school to keep their mask on while their friends aren't wearing one. They look to their parents, their teachers, and other role models for an example to follow. If the adults and everyone else in the classroom wear masks, they will wear masks. They won't understand the nuances of certain people wearing masks and others not, which would happen if masks were optional. Of note, as was mentioned earlier, but I'll mention it again, the American Academy of Pediatrics did put forth that official recommendation that all children over 2 years of age wear masks when returning to school, regardless of vaccination status. We, as the community physicians, implore you to continue with the mask mandate in our schools to protect all of our vulnerable and precious children. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Marion Banks, followed by Angela Logan. You can't hear me? Okay, the next speaker is Marion Banks. I'll almost eat this microphone. Followed by Angela Logan.
Thank you. For those of you that are being rude while other people are speaking, can you please have some decorum and give the respect that was given to you while you were speaking? Excuse me? You what?
Yes.
A tissue. I don't need a tissue. Sure. Have some decorum and be respectful.
All right, let's please all be respectful of the speaker and let them state their words.
Good evening, Dr. Talley, school board members, and other district support and administrator present in tonight's meeting. Let me start by saying thank you to our school board members for diligently continuing to lead and support our school district on behalf of our community. We thank you for your leadership, your commitment to our students, and for the continued work and improvement of the education system for all students. We thank you for standing firm, making grounded decisions, and seeking the best learning opportunities possible, including culturally responsive teaching. I want to thank our teachers for finishing the school year strong and look forward to them coming back refreshed in the best way possible to give our kids what we hope to be a normal school year. Considering the challenging school year we had, I hope that our educators are able to come back and connect home and school cultures, engage students in rigorous learning, and empower students as agents of social change. I hope that we are able to design learning experiences that cultivate the engagement and curiosity of all cultures. It is imperative that they create environments, curriculum, and instructional methods that validate and reflect the diversities, identities, and experiences of all students. I am proud to live in a diverse community and value the respect and differences of all cultures. We should be raising our kids to do the same and need leaders and teachers who are willing to stand in truth and educate our kids with thought-provoking, responsible teaching. Despite the negative attacks, the threats, the miscommunication, the demands, and the outright disrespect of some in the community that have their own personal beliefs, their own personal political agendas, their own made-up propaganda about everything, they do not represent this community as a whole. My desire is that the members of this board, our wonderful teachers and administrators, stand tall and form a united front and not be intimidated by the acts of some individuals in this community and even in this audience. We are counting on you, we support you, and we appreciate your unwavering commitment and making a difference in the lives of the students in this district. And just for those here in the audience tonight, for those of you that don't want to abide by the rules and the guidelines, then make your choice for your kids and homeschool your kids. You do not represent this entire community.
Our next speaker is Angela Logan, followed by John Robinson.
Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to be heard tonight. I'll keep it short and sweet. I'm the mom of 4 in the district, 3 in elementary, who do not have the option to be vaccinated, and I am in strong support of universal masking, especially at the elementary level, and also want to thank you and let you know that I'm in strong support of continued equity work as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is John Robinson, followed by Tony Bellagamba.
Good evening, everyone. My name is John Robinson. I hope you guys can hear me. We've spoken on either side of what we feel is right. And I got to respect what you feel is right for your child, just like you got to respect what's right for my child. But the truth is the truth. For those of us that feel that science doesn't exist and all that, if you get shot, you get burnt, your house burned down, you're going to call somebody that's going to be able to assist. And that's science, bottom line. Now, I had some things I was going to say, but I kind of got to pause for a second because I just got to be 100% honest. I'm talking to you as a neighbor, as somebody in the community. We better than this. We 100% better than this. Now, I didn't get the memo about the red shirts and all that, and that's cool, and I'm fine with that. But what I'm saying is that we can't sit around and try to separate ourselves on what we know is what it is. People died on this virus. And they're letting it be known. I work for the state, and I've sat in meetings with emergency management, to which the director just said Wednesday that the virus that's coming, the Delta, Zeta, Beta, Jeta, all that's coming from Iowa and Missouri, and it's going to work like a vice grip on Illinois. That's just fact. So, and I agree. If it get that bad, shut down the schools. But that's what the argument was prior. Why are you shutting down schools to keep my kid out of school? Because I want my kid to have the best senior year possible. I want to see your child have the best life possible. I want your child to have the opportunity to do what we're doing, standing here as citizens and living your lives. Man, like I said, if I'm wrong, God forgive me. If I'm wrong, God forgive me. If you're wrong, God forgive you. I'm not going to hold nothing against y'all. This is scary times. We're supposed to try to figure out how to make our families stronger and survive. What I'm saying is this, and I'm talking to you, those that are administrating, to the educators. These educators are letting you guys know they are afraid. They're letting you guys know that they have some type of they're feeling dicey about coming into a world of what we don't, of the unknown. I'll say that. And I support those educators, because those educators they're going to be the ones that strap my children with the ability to go out and do further than what any of us in this building can do. So I'm standing with y'all, and I hope that we all can understand and agree that although you may feel that this stuff is bulletproof, we have people that don't, and we just want, just like I said with the red shirts, just like you feel that you guys can organize and get these red shirts together and good for you, I feel like we can organize, put masks on our children that don't have the ability to get vaccinated, and move forward for that little section of the day, so we can all move together. That's all I gotta say. Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Our next speaker is Tony Bellagamba, followed by Jennifer Helverson.
Hi, I have 4 children in the school district, 3 at May Watts, 1 entering Hill. I'm not going to give you any data or CDC guidance because it changes all the time, and frankly, any statistic you give, someone can give you one on the opposite, right? To me, it's just about choice. No one cares about my kids more than me, right? No one cares about her kids more than her, his kids more than him, right? And that guy who had some good points, I feel we're better than this, I agree. He wants my children to have a good life. Well, that should be up to me. The best life for my child should be decided by me. You were elected as educators, right? I respect what you're doing as educators. I don't respect your decisions on the health of our children, because you don't know any more about COVID than I do, or he does, or she does, or my neighbor, the accountant, right? And you shouldn't, right? You're not doctors. Your job is to talk or to make decisions on policy regarding our education, right? Do you want to introduce new textbooks, new educational curriculum, things of that nature? It was never meant to be to make health decisions for our children, right? That's not why you were elected. No one elected you to do that, because no one trusts you to do that. Again, because you're not doctors. I don't trust you to make health decisions for my kids. We should be able to have the choice. And I'm not the believer that we're trying to unmask the kids so that, we can stamp our feet and say we did it. All right, we're not the people who feel like there's microchips in vaccines. We're just saying it should be our choice. We believe there are benefits to the kids being unmasked, right? Whether it's seeing facial expressions to have better social interactions, or like my child who has speech problems, being able to have better speech, or the uncleanliness of masks. We believe that there are reasons that being unmasked is actually better than being masked. I'm not saying against the science, I'm saying for for social benefits. And that shouldn't be held against us. So it should be our choice at the end of the day, again, because no one cares about our kids more than us. No one wants to protect my children more than me, so I should be left with that decision. It's not a decision that you all should ever be tasked with or even forced to make. It's ridiculous that we're even having these conversations in a school board meeting. We should be talking about educational things, have nothing to do with talking about the health of our kids. Thanks.
Our next speaker is Jennifer Halverson, followed by Ben Ray.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Halverson, and I'm a mom of a junior here at Mattia, and my son has already graduated from here. And I've been very proud of the quality of education that they've had through their entire 204 school system. The reason that I'm speaking today, though, is that I want to ask for masks to be optional, regardless of the vaccination status. I also believe that masks should be optional for our teachers as well, and that there should only be optional testing for asymptomatic kids. I realize that there are parents who feel that masking a child will protect them from receiving a COVID infection, and I realize that there are children with risk factors that would make them more susceptible to a serious infection. However, the science does not show that disposable or cloth masks can stop the aerosolized spread of this virus. And masks have never been recommended to stop the spread of the flu, which has a larger particle size than our SARS-CoV-2 virus. And masks have negative health effects on our kids, and moist masks are a breeding ground for bacteria. And they don't allow for proper communication, as facial expressions cannot be interpreted. My daughter takes a sign language class, and there's no way to effectively learn sign language when facial expressions cannot be seen. Masks can also lower the levels of oxygen, causing headaches and difficulty learning for our kids. And for those parents who advocate for the use of masks, we need to emphasize that there are no safety studies to show that it's safe for our kids to wear masks 8 hours a day. In addition, children are not drivers of this infection. And we need to get this into perspective, that for kids under the age of 18 years old, the fatality rate of COVID-19 is less than the seasonal flu. For our middle and high schoolers, it is imperative that unvaccinated children not be treated differently than our vaccinated children. And this includes making our unvaccinated children wear a mask. This is medical discrimination, and it creates an environment in our schools where there are two classes of society. It's like separating the clean from the unclean, and that's a repulsive thing to do. Kids should not feel that they are singled out or given any different treatment because of a personal, family, medical decision. And parents should never feel pressure to give their children an experimental injection that has no long-term safety data, just so that their kids can have the ability to breathe freely. Please do not require unvaccinated children to wear a mask. Please make masks optional for everyone. Thank you.
The next speaker is Ben Ray, followed by Claire Lisak.
Good evening, school board members. I would like to start out by saying our children need our schools and to socialize with other children without being afraid of the germs that they are carrying. Naperville and District 204 need to follow the other school districts around the area and make masking optional in schools. We also cannot trust these vaccinations that were invented overnight. Us as parents need to take a stand and refuse to have our children being used as lab rats in order to satisfy a fear of sickness. No one likes to get sick, and we all have had the flu at one time or another, but it is unstoppable. I have known several people, old and young, who have had this virus they call deadly, and they're still alive. I go to work every day, deal with the public that are masked and unmasked because it's a choice. Our children in schools should have the same choice. have to carry around a vaccine card and show it whenever it is demanded is a violation of HIPAA laws and reminds me of the Holocaust. This pandemic has always been politically driven, and our kids have suffered the price. It is time to get back to regular school with no restrictions that were imposed for the past 2 years. These kids are behind because 204 administrators have failed them. Masking children is child abuse and is more harmful to them than the virus itself. It is amazing how there were literally 0 flu cases last year. This used to be once a reputable school district and now is just an embarrassment, and it is time to get these kids back into class full-time, no masks, social distancing, quarantining, testing, and no forced experimental vaccines. The parents who have watched this district and its administrators hurt our children by holding their education hostage will always remember who has done this. Our tax dollars have paid for our children to attend school, and this has not been the case. I demand you stop using our children as political pawns. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Claire Lissac, followed by Gina Jones.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Claire Lissac. I have 2 children who have been a part of the school district for 22 years. I have a son who graduated from Waubonsie in 2016, and I will have a senior at Waubonsie next year. We have been absolutely thrilled with District 204 and the education that our children have received. Today I'm speaking on behalf of Illinois Patriots Group. Our group met yesterday at Bingston Farms, and there were over 750 of us, an event that was put together in less than 2 weeks. Parents are becoming empowered, and it is remarkable to see. I am here for fun to tell you a story. Change of pace. When I was 18 months old, I went into a frozen seizure from dehydration. I was rushed to the hospital where the nursing staff tried multiple times to place an IV in several spots in my arms and hands. They were unsuccessful. The staff then consulted with my parents and told them the only option left was to place an IV in my temples. At that point, the doctors and nursing said it would be best for my parents to leave for 3 days because if they came back again, I would get upset and I would pull out my IVs. My parents left. What was later reported to my parents from my pediatrician was that I started to fight like hell to get them to stop poking me, but they put me in a straitjacket and multiple staff held my head and my body down until the IV was placed. This continued to happen over the next 5 years. I was hospitalized 9 different times. The doctor diagnosed me with cyclical vomiting syndrome, but could not find the trigger. Because of this, I developed medical post-traumatic stress disorder and severe anxiety. I find it very difficult to wear a mask for more than 15 minutes at a time. Over the last 16 years, I have worked to discover what was causing my anxiety. I never dreamed that I was still dealing with PTSD. In a therapeutic setting, one of the first things you are taught is to focus on breath and to perform breathing exercises. I'm here to tell you that many, many of our children in this district are dealing with anxiety problems, and they need to be able to breathe on a therapeutic level, and a mask does not allow them to do that. My parents never really discussed my hospitalizations. However, my dad, who passed away on January 1st, did tell me that he regretted leaving me in the hospital. He told me that I should always stay and be present for any medical procedure, any medical decision on behalf of my children. That is my right as a parent, and that he had made a grave mistake and was very sorry for that.
Time is up. Thank you for your comments.
Yes.
Our next speaker is Gina
I just want to finish up by saying I am speaking on behalf of over 20,000 citizens
very much.
throughout Illinois. Thank you.
Gina Jones is the next speaker, followed by Chad Martinson.
Good evening. My name is Gina, and I'm a parent of a teacher at Neuqua Valley High School. I'm here to discuss mask use during our upcoming school year. If you've ever purchased a box of masks, there's a slip of paper in each one, and it states, "Warning, this product is an ear loop mask. This product is not a respirator and will not provide any protection against COVID-19 or other viruses or contaminants. Wearing an ear loop mask will not reduce the risk of contracting any disease or infection, single use only. If there was science proving that masks deterred or stopped the virus or the infection, why is that disclaimer in the box? I don't get it. Even with this disclaimer, people wear masks anyway in hopes that they do not catch COVID. Why is that? Because the CDC said so. Even without any data that points to masks as being effective in stopping COVID, there is no real data. When you require children to wear the mask, you're promoting the idea that the mask is going to stop infection, it's going to stop virus. But that's kind of unlawful. They advertise that a product can prevent disease when you have no competent and reliable scientific evidence to support that claim. The latest findings reported at University of Louisville in May of 2021 challenged this mask use. And what they found was that mask mandates that were used to slow the spread of COVID found that 80% of those mandated masks used were mandated masks during the COVID pandemic, and while mandates induced greater mask compliance, they did not predict lower growth rates when community spread was low or high. Among other things, the study conducted using data from CDC covering multiple seasons said that mask mandates and use were not associated with lower COVID spread among the states. They observed risks that accompanied mask wearing, such as increased facial acne, which directly relates to poor confidence in our teenagers, inadvertently encouraging dehydration because they don't feel like they can get a quick sip of water. They enhance the barrier breakdown and bacterial infection risk. Clinicians have reported masks to increase headaches and sweating and decrease cognitive precision. By obscuring nonverbal communication, masks interfere with social learning in children. Likewise, masks can distort verbal speech and remove visual cues to the detriment of individuals with hearing loss. With the CDC's recent recommendation that children wear masks during the school day, that is their opinion. That is what they've decided to tell the world. That doesn't mean that we have to make that a mandate. They have yet to provide any real data to confirm that masks effectively work in the school environment. I respectfully request that mask use be optional regardless of vaccine status.
Ms. Donahue, the speaker's time has ended.
Thank you very much for your comments. Our next speaker is Chad Martinson, followed by Chami Dardis.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening. I have 3 kids, a graduate of 2020 at Metea Valley, attended the school district kindergarten through his senior year. I have an incoming senior at Metea and a 4th grader at Brookdale. I'm here to ask respectfully that you allow parents to choose what is best for their children's medical treatment. Masks do very little to protect them. In fact, our kids don't need protection. 1,800 kids under the age of 18 died the last 2 years in the state of Illinois. You can go out to the CDC and look it up yourself. Very, very easy to find. 1,800. How many? Pick a number in your mind right now. How many of those kids in the state of Illinois died from COVID? 11. 11 kids died from COVID. That number is blown away by the number of kids that have died from suicide, the number of kids that died in car accidents. Heck, the number of kids that were killed or shot in Chicago last weekend. We're talking about 11 kids. I looked up, each one of these deaths is tragic, each one of them. So I looked up and tried to figure out, okay, who was the last one, when did they die, and why? It was in June. Let me read the headline. Coronavirus kills local child as death toll rises to at least 22,963. Wow. COVID is something to be truly scared of. Anybody's going to read the headline and say it's killing children. It's not. It's just not. You have to do a little bit of work, but you read the article. This is the local press, the press. A young girl is among the most recent local victims of coronavirus. The girl was 7 years old. She lived in the suburb of Stone Park. She died June 3rd from leukemia and respiratory failure due to COVID-19. One of those 11 kids tragically died from leukemia, and her battle with cancer, something real, was completely diminished and used by the press to fearmonger. Our kids don't need the masks. It doesn't do anything for them. If teachers and administrators want to be protected, I respect your right to wear a mask. I respect your right to get vaccinated. If you're still fearful, socially distance, practice good hygiene, all of the things that we think might, we don't know for sure, but might keep us safe. If you're still fearful, you're probably not fit for the classroom at that point. We need educators who want to engage our kids and involve them in their
Donahue, the speaker's
Thank you very
time
much.
has ended.
The next speaker is Chame Dardis, followed by Alicia Smith.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Dr. Quiva Dardis. I have 3 children who love District 204. All 3 are immunocompromised. One is so severe he receives immunoglobulin infusions every week. But we love it here and we're very happy, and I want to take this opportunity to thank all of you. I understand the burden you are under, it's enormous, and for all the work you're doing, and you've navigated beautifully through this, so thank you. I would just like to point out that I believe mask mandating would be in direct contradiction of the Amendment 14, giving us constitutional protection for equal protection. Also, I checked the IDPH, CDC, there is no law or rule to mask mandate, but there's hopeful news. Our children are not at high risk. We actually are at virtually 0 risk. This virus has been circulating in the district for 16 months, and thankfully there has been no deaths under age 16. The CDC said in March that the fatality rate was 0.001%. That's a 99.999% recovery rate. That is good news. There was confusion about asymptomatic transmission. Dr. Sarah Lewis in Bristol has just shown 1 to 5% of children may be asymptomatic carriers, but it's actually the adults. So this is all very positive news for us. Masks don't work. The virus is 0.1 microns. And the masks we're using, specifically the YYT0969 that we're all buying, this is not for medical use, they do not filter the virus. They do not have a particle efficacy filtration rate. I am very concerned about the adverse effects we're seeing. JAMA Pediatrics published an article in June of this year going through chronic hypoxia and hypercapnia. These are causing we're all seeing it, headaches, sore throat, irritability, change of mood. I could go on for a week, not 3 minutes. I saw your lovely motto outside. I don't want to butcher it. It's equality and excellence for all, something like that. I feel by mandating a certain group of children that we will be visually flagging their medical condition, their health status. We're creating a 2-tier system, and I would fear that we're going to lead into some kind of segregation, isolation, and potential for discrimination and bullying. This is a great community. Please allow parents make medical autonomy decisions for their children, case-by-case basis. Those who wear a mask, great. Let those who do not need to or want to, that is fair too. Please allow our children go back to school in some kind of semblance of normality. They've had a rough year, and we all know we're here for the children. This is a great community, and thank you. I would just also like to say there's a misnomer about the variants. Virus mutates every 10 to 12 hours. Also, post long-haul COVID.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Okay, thank you.
Our next speaker is Alicia Smith, followed by Melissa Valenti.
Hello. Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, sorry, members of the school board and the 204 community. My name is Alicia Smith. I'm a former student, former teacher, current homeowner with loved ones in the district. I am here today to once again talk about inequities in our 204 schools. Indian Prairie School District 204 is an award-winning district that is well known for the excellent education that its students are able to receive. And I know that all of you are committed that that excellence is available to all students. Unfortunately, we have significant disparities when it comes to our low-income population. 16% of District 204's student population is low income. Yet we have 2 elementary schools, Georgetown and Longwood, that have a low-income student population greater than 40%. Now, I'm going to beg forgiveness here because I'm going to commit a 204 cardinal sin, but since you use this district as a comp in your boundary committees, I feel that it's okay to do so. There is a neighboring district of District 204 that also has a low-income student population of 16%, District 203. 203 and 204 both have a low-income population of 16%, yet 203 has 0 elementary schools with a low-income population greater than 40% of its student population. I am very encouraged by the Boundary Committee's guiding principle that states you want to make sure that ensuring equitable student experiences at each school. And I hope that the board members and the Boundary Committee are truly committed to that principle. We should not have schools segregated by income in District 204. Thank you.
Our last speaker is Melissa Valenti.
Hello? Can you hear me? I'm just going to read this word for word. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you this evening. My name is Melissa Valenti. I've lived in Naperville for 35 years. I am a graduate of Waubonsie Valley. My siblings went to, go Warriors. My siblings went to Wheatland Elementary School and at the time Gregory Middle School. So when my husband and I had the opportunity to purchase my childhood home 21 years ago, we were elated and felt blessed to have our children in this amazing 204 school district. It has been a blessing to our children who needed IEPs, and the feeling is immeasurable to have that support. 4 children later, 2 kids are grown, one of which is a Marine. We have a senior at Nequa and a 3rd grader at Peterson, who says when she grows up, she wants to be a superhero or a mermaid. We attribute a part of this to the school district and the supportive staff who definitely had a hand in helping our children grow into who they've become. We realize these are unique times. We have all endured a year of firsts. They haven't been without loss and sacrifice. Our children, most importantly, have lost a little spark of innocence, a year of education without seeing their favorite teachers and friends in a quote-unquote normal setting. There's a window of opportunity this year to give them this spark back, to let them have a bit of normal back into their lives at school. We have certainly been living that way outside of school, and my husband and I feel it isn't in their best interest for the kids to have them mask and in fear. To be cautious, yes, but fearful, not at all. Please vote to have choice be ours this year, and if we choose not to send our children to school with masks, that is ours to make as parents. We know what's best for our children. Thank you for your time, and God bless.
Thank you. So we now move to our consent agenda and superintendent report. We will start with the superintendent report. Dr. Talley.
Thank you, Ms. Donahue, members of the Board of Education and the Indian Prairie community. Tonight I will start off with my comments remembering one of our teachers. Ms. Heather Marie Howler, a Project Arrow teacher at Peterson Elementary. She was a teacher in Indian Prairie for the past 23 years and had been at Peterson for the last 14. A celebration of her life will be held on July 31st, 2021 at 2 p.m. at High Point Church in Naperville. We hope her family and friends know that she made a difference in the lives of our children and our community. Today was the first day of our summer school program. The program serves children across the district and is found in 7 of our elementary schools. We also have programs in place to serve our middle and high school students. All programs are providing us with an opportunity to reconnect with students, work on accelerating learning, and preparing students for the start of the new school year. We have posted several postings on our site for staff positions to include lunchroom supervisor, teaching assistant, substitutes, and bus drivers. I urge you or your friends who are looking for a position to consider our vacancies. Filling these vacancies will support the smooth operation of our school and, more importantly, support our students. Parents are reminded that all students must have the required vaccinations and physicals in order to start the school year. With the events of last year, some children may not have had all of the required school vaccines. Nurses are reviewing records and have and will contact families where children have missing health requirements. If your child was not in compliance last year due to COVID-related issues, your child will be excluded on the first day of school. Let me be clear, the COVID vaccine is not one of those required vaccines. I will end my comments by reminding parents the need to register for the new school year. Registering or the lack of registering impacts whom we keep employed in our schools. If we are under-enrolled, we then have to release teachers. These teachers then find jobs in other districts. If enrollments come in high later in the summer, it makes it difficult for us to rehire some of the teachers we released. Principals are making their schedules based upon registrations. Late enrollment surges prevent the principals from scheduling students in a thoughtful manner. Please take the time now to enroll your children so we will have the correct staff in place to serve all of the children. We have 2 schools that are more than 90% registered. However, we have a number of schools that are less than 50% registered. I will share more when it's time to talk about the plans for the fall. So back to you, Ms. Donahue.
Okay, next we move to our consent agenda items. I need a motion to approve consent agenda items D through Q.
Sorry, go ahead. I'd actually like to pull H and I.
Okay, so Jeannie, do you have this?
I do. So we're pulling H, I, and Q.
Yes.
Correct. And I'll make a motion for the approval of consent agenda items D through Q, omitting H, I, and.
No, D through.
I'm sorry.
P. D through P.
D through P. Omitting H and I.
Okay, do you
and
have that?
Q, but
I did.
Okay. So I have a motion, and do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, Jeannie, please call the roll.
Mr. Rising?
yes.
Mr. Karubis?
Yes.
Ms. Deming?
Aye.
Ms. Grover?
Yes.
Ms. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Jane?
Yes.
Ms. Fosdick?
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. So now I need a motion to approve consent agenda item H through I.
Yeah, I'll do H and I
Okay.
together. So I'll make a motion to approve agenda item H and I.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Who was the second?
Any discussion?
Susan.
Ms. Deming.
Susan.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to, because this is something a little unique that came up in the consent agenda, and I just wanted to for transparency purposes, identify this particular situation because H is approval to reject all paper bids, and I is to approve paper bid off of the state contract. And I just wanted clarification, Dr. Talley. Well, first of all, it's my understanding that this year compared to last year, we saw in excess of a 20% raise in paper prices. But the reason why we didn't go with those bids that we received and we rejected them is because we were able to actually get a lower price, which was different than most years. Most years we'd get a better price by bidding it ourselves. We actually got a better price this year through the state contract. Is that correct?
Yes, we were able to save over $100,000 by doing it, pulling it from the state. And the lowest bid was actually not a well-defined bid. It actually had many problems with it. So getting it from the state saved us $101,000.
Okay, that's all I just wanted to clarify. Thanks.
Any other discussion? Okay, Jeannie, can you call the roll?
Mr. Rising?
Yes?
Ms. Deming?
Yes.
Mr. Karubis?
Yes.
Ms. Grover?
Yes.
Ms. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Jane?
Yes.
Ms. Fosdick?
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes, and now I need a motion for consent agenda item Q.
I'll make a motion for the approval of consent agenda item Q.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I needed to pull this agenda item. I appreciate you allowing that to happen. I need to abstain from this vote because I have either personal or professional relationships with some of the individuals on the report.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, Jeannie, please call the roll.
Mr. Rising?
Aye?
Ms. Deming?
Aye.
Ms. Grover?
Yes.
Ms. Fosdick?
Yes.
Ms. Jane?
Yes.
Ms. Donahue?
Yes. The motion passes. So now we move to our discussion item, and next up is our fall update presented by Dr. Talley and Doug Akarius.
While Mr. Akarius is getting settled and the PowerPoint comes up, thank you, Ms. Donahue. Members of the Indian Prairie community, tonight we will share with you our plans for the fall. Before I turn the presentation over to our deputy, I want to provide a few words. Last school year, as we were on the pandemic journey with schools, the through line throughout all that we did was ensuring the health and safety of our students, our staff, and our community. Interwoven with that through line was the academic success of our students. All of our decisions, those that you agreed with or disagreed with, were based upon guidance from the CDC and requirements from the Illinois State Board of Education and the Illinois Department of Public Health. Some may have wanted us to use other sources of data and information, but we stayed with the same ones to ensure consistency in our approach. On Thursday, July 8th, the CDC came out with new guidance for schools. That guidance was followed by IDPH putting out its endorsement of the CDC guidance. ISB also echoed the guidance from IDPH. Since then, we have been reviewing the guidance, participating in multiple webinars from various organizations, including law firms, the health department, and other organizations reviewing the guidance and determining how to operationalize the information. What I can say is that the new guidance provides more flexibility to school districts now than last year. Additionally, the guidance stresses the need for there to be layers of prevention or mitigation strategies in place in our schools to keep our students healthy and support a healthy community. What are those layers of prevention or mitigation? They include the following: physical distancing of 3 feet or more, self-certification and symptom monitoring by parents, hand hygiene, enhanced ventilation, masks required on buses, contact tracing, optional COVID screening testing, vaccinations, cleaning and disinfecting practices, and mask wearing. Last year, we had in place these prevention strategies, and they supported the success of our in-person learning program that we had in place the last semester. Similar to how the winter you add layers of bedding to stay warm, the CDC is saying one has these layers to protect oneself from the COVID vaccine. The most important layer is the vaccination. DuPage has done well with its vaccination rates, and that has protected us. Though the, quote, CDC continues to recommend masking and physical distancing as key prevention strategies, end of quote, and the CDC says that, quote, if school administrators decide to remove any of the prevention strategies for their school based on local conditions, they should remove them one at a time and monitor closely for any increases in COVID-19 cases, end of quote. That language provides for the flexibility that I mentioned earlier and will be the focus of the discussion for Mr. Akarius. I will now turn over the presentation to Mr. Akarius, who will share what our fall plans are. When he is done, I will add a few last words before turning the meeting back to our president, Ms. Donahue. Mr. Akarius.
Thank you, Dr. Talley. Good evening, Board of Education members, staff, and community members. Tonight, we wanted to give an update on the plans for this upcoming school year based on a recent CDC update, which was quickly supported by ISBE and IDPH. This update came just a little over 10 days ago. Our goal for the 2021-22 school year is very similar to last year's goal, which is to support a comprehensive educational program for the 21-22 school year within the current requirements provided by local, state, and federal health and safety officials. We also, just as we did last year, want all students to be in school, and we want to keep them in school. We are currently in phase 5 for the state of Illinois, which does indicate that all businesses and large events are all fully open and are not restricted by capacity. Our plan, the following slides are the fall opening plan based on current guidance from the CDC, IDPH, and ISBE. We wanted to provide an update to the board and community as soon as possible. Due to the timing, we still have parent groups, staff groups, and administrative groups with whom to discuss the plan. We are also in discussion with our attorneys, insurance carrier, local superintendents, and the local health department. We've also recently heard that the Illinois Department of Public Health will also be providing additional guidance in the very near future. We have not heard about any specific dates related to that. Some of the rationale for our plan, we do have a high vaccination rate, and that's fully vaccinated. In the state of Illinois, there's 102 counties. Both counties where our school districts reside are in the top 10 in vaccination rates, with DuPage County being the highest in the state at most recently 58.32%, and Will County at 48.78%. Those are fully vaccinated. Those percents are higher for people who've had at least one of the doses of the vaccine. We have a low community transmission rate at 2.16. That has slightly risen. I believe we were 1.47 last week, and I think it was 0.68 right before 4th of July. And so we're hoping that that starts trending back down. Majority of students across the district are eligible for vaccine. Students ineligible for the vaccine, which is primarily at elementary, classrooms are able to be socially distanced by at least 3 feet. If you recall, we did remove a lot of things from those classrooms so that we could accommodate more desks in those classrooms. And we know that prevention and mitigation strategies are still important. So we looked at mitigation strategies by transmission levels. And what we're doing there is we're going to use local data. So we'll look at Northwestern zip code data with the 7 zip codes that our district students or schools reside in. And we'll look at percentage of positivity tests in the past 7 days. Low transmission would be less than blue, moderate transmission 5 to 7.9, 8 to 9.9% substantial, and greater than 9.9% in the high transmission area or the red area. When we're looking at mitigation strategies by transmission levels, we are currently in the blue. In all levels, you will see the district still promoting vaccinations. We'll still send out things about vaccination clinics that we might be hosting or other ones being hosted nearby, we will continue to be doing that. For masks, they are recommended for all. They'll be encouraged for all. We are not mandating them while we're in blue. When we move to the yellow, which is above 5%, getting close to 8%, we may decide to require, if we're seeing a large amount of quarantines happening, or if we see other things that are concerning in the district and need to add a mitigation level. We do see if it continues to get above 8%, that we would be turning to masks. Physical distancing, we're going to be providing at least 3 feet. And then you'll see along the chart as we try to extend and get as much social, or I should say physical distancing as possible. Surveillance testing is a possibility when we're starting off in the blue as something optional, and that we would look at that as a continuing mitigation strategy moving forward as well. We're still going to be encouraging proper hygiene, including hand washing, respiratory etiquette, which obviously is about sneezing or coughing and turning your head into your elbow to avoid that transmitting to others. Field trips for this year, we're looking at field trips that might be within our district zip codes. And then if positivity increases, if those continue to increase, we would look at not having field trips. Lunch physical distancing, we will be trying to do as much physical distancing as possible. We know in some situations, we might not get as much distance as we want, and so we will encourage outdoor eating when possible, when the weather permits. We'll look at possible open campus, once we meet with other groups, could be a possibility for our high schools. We might also look at students being either in pods or cohorts to minimize how many students that could be spreading to for quarantine purposes. Extracurriculars, we are planning on moving forward with extracurriculars. Obviously, the IHSA makes many decisions about the high school athletics, but we are planning with moving forward with extracurriculars that we've had in the past, including music, orchestra, all those while we can. And we'll continue to try to support a full experience for our students. For our volunteers in our buildings, we are planning on having parent volunteers in the building. Once again, we'll be recommending. However, if we start increasing over 5%, we will be looking at requiring masks. And then possibly, if we get above 9.9%, we would at that time not probably be bringing volunteers into our building. Self-certification, we will be sending out for every parent to sign off one time for an annual that they will check the symptoms of their child, that they will monitor those symptoms, and that they will make decisions based on if they're noticing any of those symptoms in their child, that they should stay home. We do see that could increase during the year up to possibly quarterly, monthly, and daily, if those positivity rates continue to rise. Contact tracing will be in place, and I have some future slides that will talk a little bit more about that. We will continue our cleaning and disinfecting protocols, and one of the areas that we have told that masks are still required are on the buses, that those are required currently in the state of Illinois, just like public transportation. We are looking into driver's education of whether that's an area that we need to require mask wearing. We have not received an answer on that at this point in time, but that is something we are working through. We still have many of these that we also want to, as I said from the first slide, discuss with our leveled committees as well as the parent committees that are associated with those levels. And I apologize, I'm going to go back one on this slide. I just did want to say with at least 3 feet, we, for physical distancing, we do have some locations in the district, like our science labs, where that is going to be a little bit more challenging up at the middle school and high schools. So we are going to do our best to provide as much physical distancing as possible in those areas. And I also wanted to say regarding field trips, that does not apply to the vocational opportunities for our STEP students. That's part of their program. And so just like last year, we want to continue those as much as possible for our students in the STEPS program, knowing that they need those opportunities. I apologize for going back to that. So for quarantine and isolation, for anybody who's fully vaccinated and has no symptoms, they are not required to quarantine if named a close contact. However, they should monitor those symptoms or any symptoms that could arise over the next 14 days. However, any other person, which I'll talk a little about on the next slide, who was within 6 feet of a confirmed COVID case for a cumulative 15 minutes or more over a 24-hour period during the infections period will need to quarantine. What we have heard is that 6 feet can be reduced if both people, the person who was infected as well as the person who's not unvaccinated, if they're not experiencing symptoms, that goes down to 3 feet instead of 6 feet for quarantining purposes. So if anybody's showing symptoms, they should isolate. They should not come to school that day. We please ask, when you check on your children in the morning before they head to school, if they're showing any symptoms, please don't send them at that time until you can confirm what might be going on with them so we can try to prevent any kind of spread. For close contacts, if you are within 3 to 6 feet and there's no symptoms, if you're vaccinated, you would not have to quarantine. If you're unvaccinated wearing a mask, you shouldn't have to quarantine. And if you're unvaccinated not wearing a mask, the rule goes to 6 feet. If you're a close contact less than 3 feet and no symptoms, only vaccinated would not have to quarantine. Anybody over 3 feet would have to quarantine. And if you're a close contact less than 3 feet, if there's symptoms at all, if there are symptoms, you have to quarantine, whether you're vaccinated or not. Instruction during quarantine and isolation.
Mr. Carius, I
Yes.
just want to, can we go back to that slide just for a moment? Go back and where you talked about close contact, less than 3 feet, no symptoms. The only one who would not quarantine would be vaccinated people. So unvaccinated, wearing a mask, unvaccinated, not wearing a mask, you would quarantine, under 3 feet.
Under 3 feet, the only
Less than 3 feet,
non-vaccination
no
would,
symptoms. Yeah,
and no symptoms.
yeah, just want to
Correct.
clarify that.
Though, can I clarify to your clarification, though?
Yeah.
Because it is my understanding that there are very limited situations where the students are less than 3 feet throughout the district, correct?
There would be limited.
Correct.
Yep.
We're expecting, before I move on, that we have many less students needing to quarantine this year. And a large portion of that is because of the vaccinations being available. We also have a very high percentage of our staff being vaccinated. If we had to make an educated guess, I would say that that's probably closer to 90% of our staff being vaccinated. And so also, even at our elementary level, we may have many people in their households who are also vaccinated when you look at what the vaccination rates are for both DuPage County and Will County. So we are hoping for less quarantining, especially we know that students who are vaccinated, if they're not experiencing symptoms, we wouldn't be seeing that. This is an area that we're still working through. Students in quarantine will receive instructional and social-emotional support based on individual needs, while greatly influenced by the courses each student is enrolled in and by what is planned in each class at the time of the absent. But we do know adult support will be provided. We are working on that. We're going to be working on that with our leveled groups about exactly what that could look like. The state has not given any kind of guidance this year on defining what remote learning looks like. They haven't said that it needs to be asynchronous and synchronous or those types of things. We do know that our classrooms for students from 3rd grade through 12th grade do have access and will have access again to Google Classroom, which is going to be a great communication device for what is going on in the classroom. They'll know, what assignments were going on, what homework might be due, when tests are going to be, and we did see that to be an excellent educational tool, especially for communication. We do also see for our students younger than that, we might be also sending packets home and then having an adult follow up. And we're looking at all different options right now that we can pull off with resources, pull off financially, to provide as much support we can during that quarantine period of time. We did hear that there could still be some, right now, quarantine guidance hasn't changed. It's still at 14 days, but we're hearing that could change from the state, from Illinois Department of Public Health. That's one of the things that could possibly change when they send us guidance. So with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Talley before we take questions.
Thank you, Mr. Akarius. I want to reiterate what Mr. Akarius said, and that is masks are recommended for all who are not vaccinated. Same as what the CDC has said, and IDPH Director Dr. Ezeki has said, masks are recommended and are strongly encouraged to be worn by those who are not vaccinated. Wearing masks will also help reduce the number of quarantines we will have this year, and students will be able to stay in school. Our county is doing well, but numbers are beginning to uptick. We know that vaccinations are the #1 level of prevention, and we continue to encourage those who are able to get vaccinated. As we monitor the level of positivity, we may have to add an additional layer of protection, and that could include a requirement for all to wear masks. As we draw closer to the start of the year, we know that more questions will come, more answers will be given to us. As Mr. Akarius has mentioned, we're expecting some FAQs from ISB and IDPH soon, and we will provide those to you once we get them. I ask all of you to do what you can to help ensure we have a strong, positive school year. Now, back to you, Ms. Donahue.
Okay, thank you. So it's time for questions and comments on the fall plan, and we'll start with Ms. Dumming.
Thank you, Ms. Donahue. I just had a couple questions, Mr. Akarius. Surveillance test.
They're having trouble hearing you.
We can't hear. I apologize. Is it on now? No?
No, I think you have to put it up closer to your. Just put it closer to you.
Is it on now? Can you hear me, Doug? Mr. Akarius, can you hear me?
Yes.
Surveillance testing. How are we going to make those particular? How will we make those particular decisions?
I know, Dr. Talley, you want to take this one?
I'll go ahead and answer that question. So we have been working, I've had conversations with the company that is doing surveillance testing. I've had conversations with ISB as well. If we do it, we will make it a voluntary process by which parents can select to have their children tested. It is another layer of prevention because it will allow for us to sort of have an understanding if a child is negative before an exposure should happen. There is some belief that that testing will also be able to reduce the amount of time someone is quarantined. But I'm waiting for more specific information from the state about that. In this version of testing, different from what we did last year, it is free to us to do because we are a Tier 2 district. Additionally, the testing would be done in the school as opposed to students bringing in their vial of saliva into the building. The testing would happen in the school building.
Okay, so that is that's going to be volunteer parental. The parents would have to give their permission in order for the student to okay.
That is correct, a voluntary basis.
Okay. And then, do we have any idea, I know you gave us an idea, talked about what we're going to do as far as lunch, trying to, do the social distancing. Elementary-wise, do we have a feel yet what's going to happen there? Will we look like we did last year, or do you have any idea yet?
We're working through that right now. I mean, our goal is going to be to try to provide as much physical distancing as possible. Our buildings were very creative in trying to use different spaces in the building. We do know that, you know, when they're eating, masks have to come off, and so trying to provide as much physical distancing. We are really, obviously we are key on you know, trying to look at the health of our community. At the same time, we also want to try to avoid as much quarantining as possible if we can. And so we are going to look at it providing as much physical distancing as we can during lunch. I do believe we're still going to be starting lunch with kind of grab and go in that. So we're not, you know, having lines backed up on trying to order and do those types of things as well. So we're going to do everything that we can to try to keep as much distance as possible.
And I should have been explicit, so I apologize. Are we looking at doing the tents at some of the schools at on the elementary sites again?
Right now, we haven't reordered the tents for next year at this point in time. You know, that could always be something that we look at again. But right now, we're especially with the lower positivity rates, we are really looking at how we can get as much physical space with what we currently have.
Okay, thank you for answering my questions, and I was very pleased to hear that Google Classroom is going to still be. And President Donahue, I do have a comment to make, please.
Yeah.
During school year 2021, this board committed to making decisions based on CDC, ISBE, Illinois Department of Public Health, DuPage County Health Department, and the specific metrics affecting our local school district in DuPage and Will counties. We accepted guidance from the CDC and the state, but closely depended on the DuPage and our local indices, those mostly provided by Northwestern zip code data, as we made our decisions. I firmly believe we must follow the same procedures we did previously. Our administration and building leadership have made a commitment to ensure a minimum of 3 feet of physical distance between students in their classrooms. And with our local community transmission positivity rate at 2.16% as of today, I support the administration's masking policy of recommended. Our district today, as it was last year, is very divided on COVID-19 procedures. Blessedly, we are discussing today masking protocol versus in-person remote protocol. And while I support the recommended mask wearing, I desperately urge all families to seriously follow the mask recommended protocol, so we do not find ourselves discussing in-person remote protocols again this school year. Please understand, our situation can change, and if our local designation changes, or if the state recommendation changes, and there's a call for mask required, I will not hesitate to push for that change. My final comments are to parents and students. Safety is vital in our district, and while we desperately want all students and staff to be in our building with masks on, there are those who may make another choice. Regardless of which choice is made, understand that bullying will not be tolerated in our schools. The school board, administration, and our school leadership will not support anyone who chooses to disrespect others regarding the decision they make. All families should know that if they have any concerns about respect, their teacher, and if necessary, building leadership should be contacted. Respect of all stakeholders is a non-negotiable. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dumming. Ms. Jane?
Thank you. Mr. Carius, just a few questions. I had heard at some point for elementary school students the idea of cohorting. Can you speak to that and then also discuss what the benefits are?
Sure. Cohorting is typically when you keep a group of students together. It's like it's smaller within the school. It might be a classroom of students, so you're not really, you know, you might keep the same students who are possibly going to be eating together or going to their special classes together. It can also look like that in a classroom. We know in education the importance of cooperative learning and working with other students. And so sometimes there's also the opportunity where you might be able to set up your classroom where, you know, you have groups of students who are working together, but you know which students are in those groups. So we've seen that where that could be something we have to do, like in a lunchroom situation where these students are going to be sitting together every day. So we do know that if someone does test positive, we know exactly who was at that table and we can take appropriate action steps. So there's different ways of doing that. At the middle school, it might be the team of students. You know, obviously, in some situations, you know, people tried to look at, you know, can you get 6 kids who are kind of always together? We don't find that super realistic in our buildings, of having those groups that small. A lot of it's just not how we're designed to make things work that way. So, but you can look at cohorting or grouping with a little bit larger than that, so it's not spreading to other either grade levels or other classrooms and those types of things.
And this is something we're trying to do particularly with our under 12 students, right?
If we can't get to at least like 3 feet in certain situations, we would definitely look at how we can cohort, and obviously we want as much distance as possible. So we would look for those opportunities at other grade levels as well, possibly. You know, our high schools and middle schools for lunch, trying to have all the students in that environment, we're going to have to be creative on some things. Middle school and high school students don't like kind of assigned tables, but we could find ourselves in that situation depending.
Another question regarding that age group. Do you know of any situation where our under 12 years of age students will be less than 3 feet apart?
No, we're working on that with our building principals. We've spoke to principals with the largest class sizes to see are we able to get 3 feet of distance in there, and we've been assured that we can. So that's an area we looked at through our COVID funding. You might recall that some of our emergency relief funding, we looked at how we can also reduce K through 2 class sizes. And so we did look at opportunities to try to reduce. At the elementary, we feel like we're in really good shape. We still need to look at some of the rooms where students go for small group activities, and you know, see what we have to do to adjust there. But you know, it takes a lot of work, and we need people to work on that. And so we're still working through those, and are going to do the best that we can on that. The situations that we know we're going to have more challenges actually at the middle school and high school with some of our labs, some of our more unique coursework offerings at the high school would be places that we're a little bit concerned depending on where those class sizes land, and still waiting for a lot of families to register.
Okay, and kind of a general question, kind of going off of what Dr. Talley had quoted from the CDC about if we were to ever relax some of the mitigation measures, we would do that one at a time, or that would be recommended way. Why masking? If you could speak to that. Or Dr. Talley too.
Do you want me to?
Well, you want to start, and then I'll
go ahead.
jump in?
Yeah, I can. So if you think about last school year, in fact, especially last spring, we were already using the remove the prevention strategy of social distancing. We reduced it down to 3 feet. The difference for this school year is the protocol has changed for quarantining, and that allows us now to look at we won't quarantine really until you go below 3 feet for the most part if they are masked. So then the next, and we were successful with it overall last year. So then the next layer would be this layer of masking. What we want to be very careful about, though, is if we were to go up, and if we didn't have masks already removed, we wouldn't be able to put it back in. So the next area would be social distancing, which we really don't want to do because that would create a situation of possibly looking at a hybrid type of program. And so this gives us the opportunity now, in light of the fact that the community spread is so low, And so it gives us the opportunity to add it back later if we should start going up.
Thank you. I found that answer when I had asked that previously to be very helpful. So thank you for stating that. And my last question, if we could go to slide 10, please. Just to reiterate, if you are unvaccinated but are wearing a mask and you are not showing symptoms, but you are 3 feet apart, and I'm using that scenario specifically because many of our parents are concerned about our under 12 age students who are not eligible for vaccination. So I'm using that scenario specifically. They wouldn't have to be quarantined. Is that correct?
That is our current understanding.
Good.
We've heard some differing opinions on whether you also have to be doing surveillance screening in the buildings and stuff like that, but we have not seen that specified anywhere, and so we anticipate that that could be in that IDPH guidance that comes out as well. So we've also heard some things of through clarification that it has to be both the person who was positive and the person who was a close contact wearing a mask, but that we're still waiting for clarification as well.
Thank you. President Donahue, I just have a comment.
Sure. Go ahead.
Thank you. Like many of you, I have attempted to understand the pandemic through my own reading and research on the guidelines of public health experts, as I myself am no medical expert, but an educator. Since the onset of the pandemic till late May, June, our district has been at the substantial transmission level. The requirement of 6 feet distancing and masking were crucial as a measure to protect our staff, teachers, and students. It is only with availability of vaccines and our mitigation efforts that we were able to lessen the distance to 3 feet. And now here we are in July at a low transmission rate level. This is something to be proud of, and more importantly, thankful for, because there are many around the world that don't have access to the effective vaccines that we do, nor have the capability of applying the kind of mitigation efforts such as social distancing that we are able to do. With low transmission rates and above average vaccination rates, we now have the ability to relax mitigation measures. Many of us were concerned with the move from 6 feet to 3 feet, and I can certainly understand the concerns regarding masking from parents who have children who are not able to get vaccinated, because I too have a child under 12, and I will be following the recommendation and sending my child to school with a mask on, as it will not only reduce my child's likelihood of infection, but will also lessen the likelihood of my child being quarantined. I believe the measures we have in place, distancing, possible cohorting, possible surveillance testing, our cleaning, and our enhanced ventilation systems will be effective. And should the situation change and transmission rates increase, requirements surrounding the mask can also and will change. Public health, like everything else, is nuanced and layered and can't be discussed in absolute terms. It unfortunately is not a black and white situation, and it is in these shades of gray that we should look at all the factors holistically and make decisions. I believe the plan that is put forth reflects thoughtfulness and, most importantly, room to pivot when and if needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Grover.
Mr. Karras, I have a question. I know you said that we haven't fully decided what schooling would be like for those students who are quarantining. This past year, we had a robust Zoom and room. Will we have the same Zooming and rooming, though, for those kids?
You know, we would like to avoid concurrent teaching as much as possible. And so we are looking at different options of how we could support our students who are quarantined. I'm right now there's no plan for concurrent teaching. because it is something that, I mean, we felt it was challenging for students at home, students in the building, as well as our teachers. And, you know, we don't know what every quarantine situation is going to look like. You know, and so that's why, you know, we're going to work on looking if we have one student, what are ways that we can allow that student access, or, you know, if we have half of a classroom for some reason that is, we've got to be able to respond to those different situations and figure out how we can best support those students. You know, it could include phone calls, it could include other opportunities for things, it could, we've talked about possibly, you know, retired teachers supporting us and being able to engage with students. We've talked about other people in the building that we can use as opportunities to support students.
And I appreciate the work that you put in the slides. They're really easy to understand with the colors, and especially slide 10. I just wanted to make a statement. So as a board, we receive emails, and I've read the varying viewpoints and appreciate the parents' advocacy on behalf of your children. I've also read guidelines along with other information. As many have mentioned, CDC states students benefit from in-person learning and safely returning to in-person instruction. Vaccination is currently the leading public health prevention strategy to end the COVID-19 pandemic. IDPH and ISB have a similar stance. An article published 2 days ago about the Delta variant stated that last year you would have to give a child a really high infectious dose to make them sick. But with the virus that's more contagious, even what would be an insignificant exposure could get them sick. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommended that all children over age 2 wear masks when returning to school, regardless of vaccination status. I looked at this slide particularly when the definition of a close contact. If you are masked, unvaccinated, and 3 feet apart, you are not a close contact. That means if the person next to you has COVID-19 symptoms and you are masked and 3 feet apart, you do not have to isolate. We talk about learning loss that occurred this past year. A lot of parents have written us emails about that. And the school district has placed intervention strategies for students throughout the school year, and we have also summer intervention to help students. Research has shown that the learning gap widens as the students progress through grades, and therefore, as a district, we tend to target the younger classes to close the gaps, whether it's implementing a reading interventionist or reducing class sizes like we will be doing this upcoming year for K through 1 grade. Last year, we had a robust remote learning program of Room and Zoom, but with many students returning to school, we cannot have that program. We already are starting out with children who have some learning loss, and if these kids will be home for 2 weeks because of quarantine, it will further impact their continuity of learning. Given all of this, although I agree that masks are recommended for those 12 and older, I believe that masks should be required for those under age 12 who cannot be vaccinated, and therefore I don't support the plan.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Karubas.
So long as we are still in a public health emergency, students and teachers should be required to wear masks so students have a higher probability of remaining in the actual classroom. A parent has a right to decide whether their child should have to wear a mask or not. The right is not so high and solemn a character that it can't be surrendered. The right does not apply at all times and in all circumstances. And a resident of Indian Prairie has a right to public schooling, subject to all the rules of that school. With the most recent pronouncements from the governor, CDC, ISBE, and IDPH, Indian Prairie has the right to require students to wear a mask or not. When a parent makes a child a student, the parent voluntarily surrenders the right to wear a mask or not. As of today, the CDC isn't mandating masks in schools, except for buses. As of today, the IDPH isn't mandating masks in schools. The federal government and the state of Illinois have delegated that decision to the 850 individual school districts in Illinois, and ultimately, Indian Prairie and this board. A parent's decision to allow their child to go to school without a mask is making a decision that impacts other students who are not eligible for a vaccine because of age, health, or exemption. Parents are going to make their own risk assessments, and the schools need to make theirs. The risk assessment that provides the lowest probability of classroom closures includes universal masking. The governor currently has an executive order, which expires on July 25th, that says we are still in an epidemic emergency and a public health emergency. It's unclear whether that order will be extended. But so long as we are in a public health emergency, teachers and students should be required to wear masks so that we can stay in the classroom. Therefore, I cannot support this plan as drafted. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rising.
My first question is, from the very beginning of last year, we were very concerned about our IEP kids, and there is part of me that's worried if they have to quarantine, what that will mean for them this year, and I'm sure there's a lot that we learned from last year, and I'm just wondering how that's going to look, if it's elementary or if it's middle school or high school, how that will look for their kids to make sure, for those IEP kids to make sure that they get the instruction they need, the therapy they need, and that type of thing. So if you could just give me a broad, answer on that.
Because students who receive special ed services each have their own individual education plan, IEP, it would be the same in the sense of quarantining. We would have to understand who is out, how long they will be out. We assume 14 days, what services they receive. And so just like we did last year with creating remote individual plans, we would do the same type of thing, looking at the child, his or her needs, and then determining how we support the child when they're out.
Okay.
And so the special ed team would be in contact with the parent and inform them about how we're going to resource and support this.
Yeah, I would just want to make sure that, if that does happen, our case managers are on that right away and contacting the parents and coming up with whatever IDPH decides of when the quarantine period is, if it stays 14 or if it goes lower than that. I just want to make sure that we're not waiting until after the fact and those kids get their services. Regarding slide, I guess, 7 and 8, the mitigation strategies that are in place, and when we go to the different levels, depending on slide 6, this is kind of a guideline or a roadmap for the community as we know things today, correct? Because, I don't think any of us could have predicted the past year or what we knew and didn't know, what we knew in hindsight, what we didn't know in hindsight. I want to make sure that, we heard a lot last year, like, what was the plan and when do we plan to do the next step? So this is giving the community a guideline of that, but this could also change, but this at least gives the community a roadmap. Is that correct, Doug, I guess?
Yeah, last year, the struggles, I think, for our staff, for our parents, for our students was all the uncertainty, and we were trying to lay out at least a communication opportunity for people to understand when we might have to look at additional mitigation layers. We do see that this list could be added to when we find out about driver's education, sharing of objects. I think there's all different types of things that could be added to this list as a communication for what type of mitigation layers we would look at having in place.
Okay. And then just a comment. The fact of the matter and the reality is we still have a very split community on what they believe is safe and isn't safe. I mean, that's the reality. And none of us on this board or any other school board for that matter wanted to have these decisions or wanted to be dealing with a pandemic. But the way I look at it is my role as a school board member is to ensure all of our students have get the best education that they can from us. And to monitor that as a board member and to speak up when that doesn't happen. Equally, parents entrust us for that 8 hours a day for the safety of their kids. The question gets down to what is required, recommended, and when does my role as a school board member overreach positively or negatively the role as a school board member. So where are we today? I couldn't be more encouraged by the numbers we're seeing not only in DuPage County, but also in Will County. DuPage County is in the top 2% in the country as far as vaccination rates. In fact, DuPage County has 46% of students 12 to 17 vaccinated. Or actually, no, I take that back. It's up to 48%. I just found out today. You know, it's interesting the history of all of this and what we've gone through, from healthcare to protecting the elderly, to making sure that our youngest kids got back first. And the reason for that is it was determined that the youngest kids were the least at risk. That still holds true today. It was the reason why we always brought the youngest kids back first. And why they were first ones to go to 4 days a week. The fact of the matter is the severe risk factors for elementary students and for all students as that matter hasn't changed and it hasn't gotten worse. I've had to balance all the data and the facts, and we'll all argue on the facts because everybody has their facts, like one speaker said earlier, to make the best logical decision I can make. And most importantly, to equally represent our whole community, regardless of where you stand on this issue. I've been doing this board member thing a while. After my first year, I promised I wouldn't play the what if game on how I make my decisions, whether it's the budget or contracts or whatever. I have to make the best decision based on the data that I know today. Regarding COVID, we could play the what if game all day long. Is it going to get worse? Is it great now? Is it worse now? I mean, it all depends on where you stand on this issue. Is Delta bad? Is it not bad? Is it causing more deaths? Is it not? Is it just raising a higher positivity rate? I mean, we could play this game all day long, the what if game. The fact of the matter is the vaccination is not proven to be a COVID utopia. You can still get COVID. And actually, our kids have a higher immune system than the vaccine offers them. So, but I still struggle with this decision, and I have to remind myself that we must move forward and weigh each day, each week, and each scenario. The board has always stayed consistent during COVID, regardless if you choose to believe us or not. We said as a group we wanted to get back as quickly as possible. We would continue to follow the requirements of the CDC and IDPH. There are still things that are required, and our district will continue to follow those medical recommendations. However, as Dr. Talley said, we are in a situation now where IDPH and CDC soften their requirements as they realize that each area can do what their board and community chooses, and each area in the country cannot be treated equally because their rates of positivity and vaccinations are different. It is also my opinion that because of that softened language, it was meant for areas like ours with a high vaccination rate, low positivity rates, as long as we continue to layer and monitor these mitigations. Therefore, I'll be supporting Dr. Talley and the administration's recommendation on all the mitigations put before us, where we move forward, and the recommendation of masks, but not the requirement. This prevents me from playing this what-if game, as I believe this will keep our students safe today based on information I have today, not what may or may not happen in the future. I understand this is not going to make everybody happy. I understand people will be upset. I have to vote what I believe is right today, not tomorrow, for our community, for our students, our parents, and our staff. I feel this is the best compromise. It allows choice and clearly outlines changes we may make if needed. I believe it keeps our students safe, and families have the option of layering in masks for their students if they choose. I ask each of you to have grace and compassion. I asked that for you in December. No side won or lost in this. This was the board's decision based on our community and our interpretation of CDC and IDPH, and following the local data as we have always done. We are a better community, as a parent said earlier, than to ridicule, shame, yell at, be disrespectful, and dehumanize because of someone and their opinion is not the same as ours. This hasn't been easy for any of our families, nor has it been easy on the board or administration. I'm not only concerned for our students' physical health, I'm equally worried about their mental health and what this has put them through this past year and a half. I ask each of you to be kind and accepting for those that may have a different belief than yours. It's not our place to judge others during this pandemic, and you have no idea and path they have been on. I'll continue to pray for our country, our 204 families, our school district, for safety. I hope, like all of you, this is over soon. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Fosdick.
Right. First, I just want to say thank you for this very thorough, very thoughtful presentation, this tiered strategy. I can't imagine how long you've been working on updating daily with new information, absorbing it, rolling with it, and trying to do the best you can for our students and our community. So thank you for that. I really appreciate the clarity of this presentation. I do have a couple brief questions. My first is that, Mr. Akarius, you encourage parents to keep their kids home, right, if they show symptoms of illness, which we hope is not just in COVID times, but all the time, right?
Correct.
But in the past, this past year, when we've kept children home because they have some symptom of illness, they needed a negative PCR test to return. Will that requirement remain, or do we know that at this point?
So there would be a difference on whether if a student was quarantined because they were a close contact and showed symptoms, that's what we're still waiting for to hear from our local health department and IDPH on whether that quarantine period could be shortened. But if you're at home, you take the temperature of your child in the morning, it's 102, we want you to keep your child home for that day. You know, obviously try to see what's going on or you know, take them to the doctor, get guidance that way on what's occurring. But there could be all different symptoms. Some of the symptoms associated with this can be similar to allergy symptoms and those types of things. So there might be, go to your doctor, do those types of things. It might be that they do need a test to return, but those are situations that are isolated. That's different than the quarantining situation, what that time period might be related to that, because we don't know what might be the cause of those. That's for, you know, obviously medical professionals to determine.
Thank you for that. As an allergy sufferer, I was asking myself every day this year, is this allergies or is this COVID? All year. So I appreciate that it'll be a case-by-case basis. Two, for extracurriculars and field trips.
Can I say one other thing with it?
Yes,
I apologize. Please. We did find ourselves in situations last year where parents, not just parents, we had individuals in which for some reason they felt like their child needed to get a COVID test, and They sent them, they came back to school before they got the results. And then they were at school and got the results of it being positive. And now all of a sudden we found ourselves in a situation of, having to quarantine. And so we're also, once again, if you have a pending COVID test, please wait until you get those results to send your child to school or to come into the school or so on.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's all right. Thank you. You said for field trips in this plan that they're only within district zip codes. Does that apply to extracurriculars as well? Or will that depend on IHSA and?
Yeah, we were not currently looking at that related to extracurriculars. And one of the reasons for that is in the extracurriculars, oftentimes that's also, you're making a choice about whether you're going to do the extracurricular activity versus coming to school, is different than choosing to do an extracurricular. So that guidance is not in place for those extracurriculars.
Okay.
I know last year IHSA did try to make sure that they were scheduling them relatively close to each other, I think for that specific reason, but that language there does not apply to that.
Okay, thank you for that. My last brief question now is, how will vaccination status be verified for students?
So there's,
Or will it be?
we're hearing different things. What we envision, there might be parents that voluntarily share that information with us. It might come during a call because you might get a phone call that says your child was a close contact, and the parent might say, well, my child is vaccinated. It could come up that way. So there's different ways. We've heard some rumors about a state system, but I don't know where that's at. I believe it's called iCare, where there might be access to that system about who has been vaccinated. I don't know how rapidly that gets updated and that kind of information. So a lot of that might come from phone calls. When they're doing a contact tracing and the parent indicates that their child was vaccinated, that would change our how we have to handle that situation.
And the iCare can be opted out. Thank you. So my comment is less formalized because I wanted to try and speak from the heart. I really appreciate the board's past consistency during the pandemic. That was true before I was elected, and it's true now. It's not blind consistency, in my opinion. It's thoughtful, and it's tied to data. For the speakers tonight, especially the ones asking to protect kids, right? We all want to protect our kids. That's true of all of us as parents, it's true of all of us as educators, it's true of all of us who are here. That's why we're here. I would just like to share that I do have a special empathy for parents with a child with a fragile condition. I have a child with a life-threatening food allergy, and when she was going to school, it was really hard for me to decide how I was going to keep her safe at school. I realize it's not a perfect analogy, but it was really scary, and it was real. And when other people brushed me off and told me, don't worry about it, it was hard. So I have empathy, especially for those of you who are struggling with extra burdens during this pandemic. I do feel really good about this proposal because the tiered approach to me makes sense. It's tied to our community, not what's happening in Florida, not what's happening in LA or DC, but what's happening in our community. And right now in our community, we're doing a great job. It doesn't mean nobody's affected, but we're doing a really good job. And so we can start to do things like, make masks recommended rather than saying they're mandated right now. The flexibility that's built into this plan, I think, is genius for what we need, right? It allows us to react to what's happening in our community to best protect our kids. And so I feel really good about that. And also that flexibility is a life skill that we're teaching our children, right? When circumstances change, sometimes we need to change, and I think that's an important life lesson for them as well. Finally, I do think, as a linguist, I think we're staying true to the intended meaning of masks being recommended. Masks should be worn. I believe by saying that we're recommending masks, we are staying true to that intention by the CDC, by the Illinois Department of Public Health. I think we're being consistent and staying true to that. I understand that should is a word that can be interpreted lots of different ways. But in this case, I believe that our interpretation is thoughtful and correct. So I support this proposal as it stands. Thank you.
Thank you. So I don't have any questions. Everybody asked great ones. So I'm just going to read my statement that I put together. But I want to start out by thanking Dr. Talley and the other area superintendents for lobbying the state agencies to update their COVID protocols. Thanks to everyone who wrote emails, especially those who were respectful and expressing their opinion. It is clear that we have a community with very different viewpoints. The board reads all your emails. I am thankful to have a set of dedicated board members who work hard to support our 26,000 students, staff, and community. We are a top-rated, award-winning district that attracts families and people who want to support and teach our students. We have made and we will continue to make safety a priority. So for me personally, I believe masks help protect people. I believe COVID is a serious illness and everyone should be concerned about contracting it or spreading it. Public health is not a popularity vote or a personal choice when your choice can have a serious effect on others. We need to follow the Department of Health guidance. You should not be able to pick and choose which public health guideline you want to follow. Summarizing the latest guidance from the Illinois Department of Public Health strongly encourages mask use for people who are not vaccinated. Additionally, in summary, they said schools should work with local public health officials to determine the prevention strategies needed in their area by monitoring levels of community transmission and local vaccine coverage, and use the screening testing to detect cases in K through 12. Social distancing was also changed since the end of school year from 6 feet to 3 feet. Our district has a high vaccine rate for eligible people, a low infection rate, and comply with the 3 feet guidance. Given our current situation, I support the proposed fall plan. I encourage unvaccinated people to wear a mask in our schools. There will be no tolerance for bullying or shaming, as Ms. Deming and others had talked about. Wearing a mask helps vulnerable people in our community and will reduce spread. I am concerned about variants and another peak of infection. Everyone should be aware we will return to requiring masks as outlined in the plan if our situation changes. So everybody do their part. Thank you. Okay, our next agenda item is our action items, and I need a motion to approve the 2021-22 school year fall opening plan as presented.
I make a motion. Go ahead, Ms. Fostick.
I move that the Board of Education approve the 2021-22 school year fall reopening plan as presented.
Do I have a second?
Ms. Deming, seconds.
Any more discussion?
One further comment based on what I've heard subsequent is we're waiting for the community to be infected during a public health emergency to make a decision on universal masking. I think that's too late to keep the students safe and in the classroom.
May I make an additional comment? I think that
Is there more comment?
it's short. I think that assumes that the rates will go up. They may go up, but they may not.
Any further discussion? Okay. Jeannie, please call the roll.
Ms. Fosdick.
Yes.
Ms. Deming.
Aye.
Ms. Jane,
Yes.
Mr. Karubis,
No.
Mr. Rising, Ms. Grover,
No.
Ms. Donahue,
Yes. The motion passes. I need a motion to approve the resolution for opening schools for the 21-22 school year.
That the Board of Education approve the resolution opening schools for the 2021-2022 school year as presented.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, I will make, just to clarify what this is about for the audience. So similar to what was put in place last year, this resolution directs the superintendent or his designee to implement and enforce the fall plan that we just approved. It also gives the superintendent authority to modify the plan if needed, but the board must be informed and the board can approve or disapprove the modification. So with that, is there any discussion on the resolution?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment too on it that, there was a misconception last year that because of this resolution, it was the Dr. Adrian Talley, the dictator resolution, which was not the case whatsoever. And it's important for the community to know that, yes, Dr. Talley is in charge of operations of the district. He has sole authority of operations at the district. However, the Board of Education works with the superintendent. We don't micromanage him, but we work together to move forward as a district. And thus, because things are so fast-moving, changing, ever-evolving, based on the plan that we passed previously, the superintendent has the authority that the board gives him to make changes if and when necessary based on that plan, because we might not have a school board meeting and he might need to make an immediate plan. I mean, he might need to quarantine a school and he can't wait for the Board of Education to have a public meeting and vote yes for that. So there are a lot of circumstances and scenarios in which this board felt that the superintendent was granted some authority to be able to make some of those decisions, as long as, what Ms. Donahue said, that it was in consultation with the board president and the rest of the board. So just wanted to clarify that.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I want to mention that I will be supporting the resolution, even though I voted against the plan. I believe it's important to support a decision of the board, even if I disagree with it. And I do believe that under these circumstances, the superintendent needs the ability to deal with the dynamic, multivariable situation. So I will be voting in favor of the resolution.
Any other comments? Okay, Jeannie, please take the roll.
Mr. Rising,
Yes.
Ms. Jane,
Yes.
Ms. Donahue,
Yes.
Ms. Fosdick,
Yes.
Ms. Grover,
Yes.
Mr. Karubis,
Yes.
Ms. Deming.
Aye.
The motion passes. I now need a motion to approve the gifts and donations report for the second semester 2021 school year.
Motion to approve the gifts and donations report second semester 2020 to 2021.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I just a quick comment. I just continue to thank our community for the support and care that they have for our students and our schools in helping provide opportunities for educational enhancement for our students, for our teachers, because our schools are just so blessed to have such caring families, parents, individuals, and organizations that see how important it is to give back and provide for our students. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for all that they do.
Thanks. I also wrote a little note, similar in comment to what Ms. Dumming was expressing. So I'm speaking on behalf of the board. I want to express our gratitude for the generous giving to the district from our parents, staff, board members, and community. Board members, I noticed that. To say the least, this has been a challenging and difficult year, yet people, organizations, and businesses were still able to provide the district with $673,000 in donations. Special thanks to the Indian Prairie Education Foundation for their $131,000 in donation. These gifts supported important activities in the district for our students and families. We are very grateful to live in a caring and generous community. So thank you, everyone. So with that, Jeannie, will you take the roll?
Ms. Jane?
Yes.
Ms. Grover?
Yes.
Mr. Karubis?
Yes.
Mr. Rising?
Yes.
Ms. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Deming?
Aye.
Ms. Fosdick?
Yes.
The motion passes. So our next item is legislative advocacy and Board of Education update. I know Ms. Fosdick has something, but I think we'll wait till the next meeting. So we have a couple committees to talk about, I think, at the next meeting. Does anyone have any other items?
Ms. Donahue?
Yes.
I did just want to mention that our first meeting for, and I'm not sure if you were planning to mention, but our first meeting for parental boundary discussion was held, and great participation. Again, just want to share that every single school is represented on those boundary discussions. I don't have the date offhand for the next one, but
I think it's the 21st, July 21st.
Thank you. And it was attended extremely well, and so please do know that there is significant input from not only parents in the community, but we have tried to ensure that we've included stakeholders that also have various perspectives to help us move forward on those population and boundary discussions.
Thank you. All right, I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank
Second.
you. Is there a second?
Natasha Grover, second.